Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I'm back with my plans and pans. Well, I just left the floor of the House of Representatives, and I'm going to go back to my apartment in DC, pack up, and head home, not to return to Washington until the 12th of September. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be in the district. I'll be actually more available to constituents at home in the 9th Congressional District. The real challenge that we have is that we have to pass all 12 appropriations bills. So far, we've only done one. Thankfully, we've done the veterans, but none of the rest are done. And the fact that we couldn't do a vote means that when we get back, all we'll have is from the 12th to the 30th of September in order to get our budget done. And the other challenging part is that there are members on the Republican side who would be just as happy to have a shutdown of the government. A Republican shutdown of the government means that government basically halts its work instead of passing legislation, which is what we call a must-pass bill. I'm very concerned about it because there are real consequences to a shutdown. One of them would be that Social Security checks could be delayed. Other benefits that friends and neighbors and people in America wait for and need could not be distributed. So it's very consequential if there is a shutdown, and yet we have members on the other side of the aisle from me, Republicans, who are saying that they look forward to a shutdown of government. This week, I went to a wonderful celebration, the 35th celebration of an organization called Safe Kids Worldwide. And they were looking at a number of different topics that would keep our children safe in the world. But my part had to do with safe sleep, making sure that we do everything we can so that children aren't dying in their cribs. And you, of course, have heard about those children's deaths, unexpected children's deaths. I shared the stage with the chair of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, who I've worked very, very closely with in order to get regulation. And I was able to pass a bill along with my colleague, Tony Cardenas, a piece of legislation called the Safe Sleep for Babies Act. So first, let me just say what may not always be a common sense thing. I'm from the old school. I remember I wasn't much of a knitter, but people would knit baby blankets to put into the crib and all kinds of toys, etc. No. The best way to keep babies safe is on a hard, flat surface on their back with nothing else in the crib. No baby blankets, no bumpers on the bed, but just a bare bed. That is the safest way for infants to be protected from the sudden infant death. So the legislation that I passed would ban the manufacture of inclined sleepers. They aren't even necessarily being made for babies to sleep in, but to rock them to bed. Those have been recalled, and the bill also banned the bumpers. But what happens is that they are often still in the home. Online, you can sometimes still go to Facebook, unfortunately, and find such a product available. Right now, there's some legislation and some litigation to try and get them to stop doing that, and resale shops, etc. So we have to be careful because not all of them are off the shelf. And when it comes to a recall, my feeling is I would like to see the manufacturers of dangerous products spend as much on advertising a recall as they do on promoting a product. And as you might imagine, it's just a fraction of what is spent on promotions of products. So we want to give a warning to parents too. There is a website you can go to, saferproducts.gov, where not only can you find out information about recalled products, but if you know of a problem, you can actually add that on that website so that others are alerted that you've had a problem. Let me just say this. One of the main reasons that I have been successful in passing legislation that protects children and other consumers is because parents step up. It's really amazing that even those, and maybe even especially those who have lost a child, come forward and tell their story about a dresser that has fallen over on them. We've had parents who have come to us and talked about children who have ingested button batteries or little magnets that can be so dangerous. And it's because of them that we've been able to go back and get legislation to ban that actually saves lives. But as I said, your part hasn't ended. Make sure that you are watching for those products that are still out there. So we have to make sure that everybody is alert to watch for them. We can save lives and end dangerous products. I reintroduced legislation called the Online Consumer Protection Act. And those of you who are frequently online, and most of us are, including our children, that there are a lot of bad actors when it comes to social media platforms. And we have seen a number of these platforms hiding behind what they call free speech, that and the protection of the right to say pretty much anything you want. We think that there's a limit to that. So the legislation that I introduced along with Kathy Castor would set some limits when it comes to misinformation. You may remember that during COVID-19 that there was a lot of misinformation. Oh, don't take it, it's really dangerous. Or during the elections, to undermine any kind of belief in the integrity of the election process. But we also know that there's been a lot of bullying, a lot of threats, and sometimes even worse. You know that there have been threats of violence. There's also been a problem with discrimination. Airbnb, for example, didn't follow the housing laws in some places. Now, I am a believer in free speech, but I think there have to be some limits. That right now we want to have some control on what actually is being perpetrated online. That's why I think this legislation, carefully drawn to protect free speech, would make the platforms a much safer place, a more confident place for us to go, and certainly for our children to go. So I'm sure that some of you who are listening are part of Medicare Advantage plans. And you may have heard before, I have a number of very serious concerns about Medicare Advantage. It is not Medicare, traditional Medicare. These are private companies that call themselves Medicare Advantage. And of course, they do contract with the government and get some money. But when you go online and it says dial 1-800, blah, 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 that is not Medicare. And why do I care about that as long as you get your care? Because there is a difference in the availability of care. We have seen 2 million people on Medicare Advantage being denied initial care. They were turned down, and only 11% of those were actually challenged. Medicare Advantage per patient is actually paid more than the traditional Medicare gets for the care that it gives. On Medicare Advantage, you have to be within a network. You may not be able to travel and get the care they need if you're out of town. But they do, I admit it, will say that they offer sometimes eye care or even dental care or hearing aids That's a good thing. But if the money that is being overpaid right now to Medicare Advantage were to be shifted to Medicare, traditional Medicare itself, Medicare would have enough money to provide those services at long last. So my legislation, the Safe Medicare Act, says that Medicare Advantage plans cannot use the name Medicare in their advertising at all. They are private companies. They can describe themselves in other ways than saying they are Medicare, because they are not. If you want to know the truth, I'm for Medicare for all. I think that the direction that we ought to go in is that there is a federal program that is there for people, Medicare for every single person, and you pay for it through your taxes, but everybody has the right to quality health care in our country, as most industrial countries already do. And I think that we're going in the wrong direction when we privatize, and Medicare Advantage is one of those ways. That's a private company. I'd be happy to hear from you if you think otherwise. If you're happy with your Medicare Advantage program, no problem. It does better for you than Medicare in your view. I'd be happy for you to let me know. And let me end with that. Your feedback is very precious to me. It helps me. I want to hear what your opinions are, if there are things that we should be covering in PANS and plans, especially while I'm in the district, if there are some local issues that are very pressing and affect a number of people, let me know. In any case, as usual, I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.